My name is Megan, 32, and I built my real estate career from nothing to afford my dream condo with panoramic city views. Growing up, my parents always favored my sister Stephanie. She got the better gifts, more attention, and endless second chances. Last Thanksgiving, I accidentally overheard them plotting to ambush me at Christmas, with plans to move Stephanie into my home without my consent. They had no idea I was listening, or that I would turn their scheme into the greatest lesson in boundaries they never expected to learn. Before I dive into how I turned my parents' scheme against them, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. This Christmas story doesn't have the ending my family expected. I grew up in a comfortable, middle-class neighborhood outside Boston, with tree-lined streets and good public schools. From the outside, we looked like the picture-perfect American family. My father, Thomas, now 58, worked as an accountant at a respectable firm, while my mother, Karen, 56, taught third grade at the local elementary school. My sister, Stephanie, is 4 years younger than me, now 28, and from the moment she was born, the dynamic of our family shifted in ways that would shape our relationships forever. When I look back at our childhood photos, the pattern is clear. In every Christmas picture, Stephanie is surrounded by twice as many presents. During birthday celebrations, her parties were elaborate affairs with professional entertainment and custom cakes, while mine were simple gatherings with homemade decorations. These weren't just childhood perceptions. The favoritism was tangible, documented, and noticed by relatives who occasionally made uncomfortable jokes about it. "Your sister is just more sensitive," my mother would say whenever I pointed out the disparities. "She needs extra attention." My father was less subtle. "Stephanie has a special creative spirit," he would explain when she threw tantrums about not getting her way. "You're the practical one, Megan. You understand." And I did understand. I understood that I was expected to be the responsible one, the one who needed less, the one who should give way. By 12, I was making my own school lunches and helping with household chores while Stephanie was being driven to dance classes and art workshops. By 16, I was working part-time at a local grocery store to save for college, while my parents discussed which prestigious arts programs might best nurture Stephanie's potential. The college years cemented the pattern. I attended the state university with a partial scholarship, working 20 hours a week to cover expenses. My parents contributed what they called what they could about 1/4 of my tuition. Meanwhile, they paid fully for Stephanie to attend an expensive private university, where she changed her major 4 times before eventually graduating with a liberal arts degree and no career plans. "Your sister is still finding herself," my mother explained when Stephanie moved back home after graduation. "You've always known exactly what you wanted. What I wanted was acknowledgement. What I wanted was equal treatment. What I wanted, eventually, was distance." At 22, I moved across the city and limited my visits to major holidays. I threw myself into my career, starting as a real estate assistant and working punishing hours to learn the business from the ground up. By 27, I was consistently exceeding my sales targets. By 29, I had saved enough for a down payment on a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view that made every mortgage payment worth it. Throughout these years, Stephanie's path took a different direction. After graduation, she cycled through a series of passion projects and failed ventures: a boutique that closed after 8 months, a food blog that never gained traction, a jewelry-making business that cost more money than it made. Each failure was met with parental consolation, financial bailouts, and the constant refrain: "At least you're pursuing your dreams, unlike your sister who just focuses on making money." The irony wasn't lost on me that my money focus had resulted in financial independence while Stephanie remained perpetually dependent. Last year, Stephanie moved in with her boyfriend, Ryan, a software developer whose income supported their lifestyle while Stephanie consulted on vague creative projects. But 3 months before Thanksgiving, Ryan ended the relationship, leaving Stephanie scrambling for housing she couldn't afford. During our obligatory weekly calls, my mother dropped increasingly unsubtle hints. "Your sister is having such a hard time finding an affordable place," she sighed during one conversation. "The rental market is challenging right now," I responded neutrally, having no intention of offering my home as a solution. I'd worked too hard for my personal space. my sanctuary from the world. It's such a shame you have that extra bedroom just sitting there, she continued, undeterred by my lack of enthusiasm. Family should help family. I'd learned long ago that direct confrontation led nowhere, so I simply changed the subject. How's Dad's golf game coming along? The deflection worked, but the pressure was building. Little did I know how far they were willing to go. Thanksgiving arrived with its usual mix of nostalgia and tension. The scent of turkey and pumpkin pie filled my parents' home, mixing with the underlying currents of unspoken expectations and old dynamics that never seemed to change. I brought an expensive bottle of wine and a homemade cranberry sauce, determined to fulfill my familial obligations with grace. From the moment I arrived, however, something felt off. My mother hugged me a beat too long at the door. My father kept clearing his throat before making unusually enthusiastic small talk about the weather. Stephanie, typically dramatic and center stage, seemed oddly subdued, shooting conspiratorial glances at our parents throughout appetizers. Their behavior wasn't just strange, it was coordinated, as though they were actors in a play waiting for their cue. "This stuffing is excellent, Mom," I offered, trying to break the awkward atmosphere. "Thank you, dear. I used a new recipe," she replied, exchanging a quick look with my father that set my internal alarms ringing. During the main course, the conversation remained superficially pleasant. Stephanie mentioned a potential new job opportunity without details. My father discussed a client's interesting tax situation. My mother talked about her student's Thanksgiving pageant. Yet, beneath the normal topics, a current of nervous energy circulated among the three of them. After we finished the pumpkin pie, I excused myself to use the bathroom. As I walked down the hallway past my father's study, I heard my mother's voice drift through the partially open door. "We need to finalize the plan for Christmas," she was saying in a hushed tone. "Stephanie can't keep paying her rent much longer." I froze, my hand still reaching for the bathroom doorknob. I should have continued walking. I should have respected their privacy. But something in her tone made me pause, instinct warning me that this conversation concerned me directly. "Megan has invited us all to her place for Christmas dinner," my father responded. "That's the perfect opportunity to bring it up. She can't say no with everyone there." My stomach tightened. Say no to what, exactly? "She has that whole second bedroom just sitting empty," Stephanie's voice joined in, whining in the familiar tone that had always preceded her getting exactly what she wanted. "It's not like she even uses it except to store her fancy clothes and workout equipment." "Now, Stephanie," my mother cautioned, though her tone held no real reprimand, "we need to approach this carefully. You know how Megan gets about her personal space." My father chuckled dismissively. "She's always been territorial, even as a child. Remember how she used to put those ridiculous keep-out signs on her bedroom door? She owes me anyway," Stephanie continued, the entitlement in her voice unmistakable. "She's always had it easier. Everything just works out for her. One good job, and suddenly she has this amazing condo while I'm struggling just to make rent on a crappy studio." "We'll explain that it's just temporary," my mother soothed. "Just until Stephanie gets back on her feet. A year or so at most. Megan makes enough to help out the family," my father added firmly. "It's time she contributed more than just showing up for holidays with expensive wine to show off." I stood frozen in place, blood rushing in my ears. The bathroom forgotten, I pressed myself against the wall, struggling to process what I was hearing. They were planning to ambush me at Christmas in my own home, with demands that my sister move in. Not a request. A demand disguised as a family discussion, where saying no would make me the villain. "She barely uses that condo anyway," Stephanie continued, her voice bitter. "She's always working or at the gym. Meanwhile, I'm struggling just to survive. We'll make her understand it's her responsibility as family," my father concluded. "Now, let's get back to dinner before she wonders where we are." I barely had time to slip into the bathroom before I heard their chairs scraping back. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my face pale with shock. Closing my eyes, I took several deep breaths, splashed cold water on my face, and forced myself to appear normal before rejoining the table. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur. I smiled, helped clear dishes, and made appropriate noises about looking forward to hosting Christmas. Inside, I felt hollow, betrayed by the people who should have been my biggest supporters. Not once had they considered asking me. Not once had they acknowledged the years of hard work that had earned me my home. Not once had they questioned whether Stephanie deserved to impose on my life after years of poor decisions. Driving home that night, the tears finally came. I pulled over on a quiet street, unable to see through the blur of hurt and anger. For 32 years, I had accepted my place in the family hierarchy, the responsible one, the one who needed less, the one who should give way. In that moment, gripping my steering wheel in the dark, something inside me hardened into resolve. The pattern would end now, and I would be the one to break it. The weekend after Thanksgiving, I wandered through my condo with new eyes. The morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the space I had worked so hard to call my own. I ran my fingers along the kitchen countertops I had carefully selected, admired the hardwood floors I had stretched my budget to afford, and stood on the balcony overlooking the city I loved. This wasn't just property, it was the physical manifestation of every extra hour I'd worked, every vacation I'd skipped, every sacrifice I'd made, and my family saw it as nothing more than an empty space for Stephanie to occupy. I called Rachel, my best friend since college, and invited her over for coffee. She arrived an hour later, her expression shifting from cheerful to outraged as I recounted what I had overheard. "They can't be serious," she exclaimed, pacing across my living room. "They don't get to decide who lives in the home you bought. This isn't a democracy, it's your property." "They've always been like this," I explained, curled up on my sofa. "Stephanie needs something, and everyone else rearranges their lives to provide it. So, what are you going to do?" Rachel asked, settling beside me. "Tell them no?" I stared out at the skyline. "They're not planning to ask, Rachel. They're planning to corner me during a holiday gathering in my own home, using emotional manipulation and family pressure to force my compliance." "You could cancel Christmas," she suggested. "And then what? Postpone the inevitable? Have this same confrontation at Easter? At my birthday?" They won't stop. We discussed various approaches, setting clear boundaries, bringing a friend as emotional support, preparing a script to firmly decline. None of them felt right. Each scenario ended with me defending my position while being cast as selfish and unfeeling. The next day, I met Jessica, my real estate mentor, for lunch. 10 years, my senior and formidably successful. Jessica had guided my career with wisdom that extended beyond business advice. After hearing my situation, she nodded thoughtfully. "My brother tried something similar years ago," she revealed. "Wanted to move his college dropout son into my guest house just until he figured things out. That was 5 years ago. My nephew is still living with him. No job, no plans." "How did you handle it?" I asked. "I asked myself what the property meant to me," she said. "Was it just walls and a roof, or was it something more? For me, my home represents my independence. No one gets to compromise that, not even family." Her words resonated deeply. My condo wasn't just square footage and amenities, it was the first place that had ever been truly mine, unshared and uncompromised. More importantly, it represented a psychological boundary between my adult life and the family dynamics that had always diminished me. That evening, I researched the current seller's market for condos in my neighborhood. The values had increased significantly since my purchase 3 years ago. On impulse, I contacted Amy, a trusted colleague who specialized in luxury properties. Hypothetically, I asked, "How quickly could I sell my place in this market? With your location and finishes?" "We'd have multiple offers within days," she replied. "But you love that condo. Why would you sell?" I wasn't ready to explain, but the seed was planted. The following day, I toured 3 upscale apartment buildings in a different neighborhood. One in particular caught my attention, a modern high-rise with excellent security. Smaller than my condo, but impeccably designed. The leasing agent mentioned they had a vacancy that could be held with a deposit. "How flexible is the move-in date?" I inquired. "We can work with your timeline within reason," she assured me. "Are you currently in a lease elsewhere?" "No," I replied. "I own my current place. Just considering a change of scenery." Walking back to my car, the outline of a plan began to take shape. Not a confrontation, but a checkmate. Not a defense, but a decisive move they wouldn't see coming. I felt a strange mixture of dread and exhilaration. Part of me hoped my family would somehow redeem themselves before Christmas, making my plan unnecessary. A larger part knew better. That night, I sat at my dining table with a legal pad, mapping out the details. I would need to. 1. List the condo with Amy, requesting discretion. 2. Accept Christmas hosting duties enthusiastically. 3. Schedule virtual tours for serious buyers only. 4. Secure the apartment with a flexible move-in date. 5. Have all paperwork prepared for the day of the confrontation. I stared at the list, my stomach churning with anxiety. Was I overreacting? Would this irreparably damage my family relationships? Was getting away from their manipulation worth the potential fallout? I thought again of Stephanie's entitled words. She owes me anyway. No, I decided. This wasn't about revenge. This was about breaking a lifelong pattern, about finally establishing that my needs, my space, and my boundaries deserved respect. If my family couldn't offer that respect willingly, I would create a situation where they had no choice but to acknowledge my autonomy. The decision made, I called Amy and asked her to come over the following evening to discuss listing my property. When she asked why I was selling so suddenly, I gave her the simplified truth. Family complications. I need a fresh start. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I'll be discreet. We'll find the right buyer, someone who will love this place as much as you do. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I slept soundly. The weight of indecision lifted from my shoulders. The path ahead would be difficult, but it was clear. December unfolded in a flurry of covert activity and emotional turbulence. By day, I maintained my normal routine closing end-of-year property deals, attending the office holiday party, and responding to my mother's increasingly frequent calls about Christmas dinner plans. By night, I prepared for the most significant confrontation of my life. Amy worked quickly and discreetly, bringing only pre-qualified buyers for private viewings while I was at work. Within 10 days, we had 3 offers, all above asking price. The most attractive came from a young professional couple expecting their first child, who fell in love with the second bedroom they planned to convert into a nursery. Their flexible timeline allowed for a January closing, and they had no objection to me hosting one last Christmas gathering before handing over the keys. They're perfect, Amy assured me as we reviewed the offer at a quiet cafe far from my office. Financially solid, genuinely in love with the property, and their timeline aligns with yours. I signed the acceptance papers with a mix of sadness and relief. The condo had been my dream home, but it now felt tainted by my family's plans to invade it. Better to let it go to people who would treasure it as I had. With the sale proceeding in the background, I secured the apartment I'd toured earlier. The building manager agreed to hold the unit with a substantial deposit, allowing me to move in any time after December 26th. I signed the lease during my lunch break, feeling as though I were living a double life. "Are you sure about this, Megan?" Rachel asked one evening as she helped me discreetly pack essential documents and irreplaceable items. It seemed so extreme. I carefully wrapped a framed photo of my grandmother, the only family member who had ever truly seen me in bubble wrap. What's extreme is planning to move someone into my home without my consent, then making me the villain when I object. I know, but selling your home? That's a big response. I paused, a stack of documents in my hands. It's not just about Stephanie moving in. It's about 32 years of being expected to give way, to accept less, to accommodate everyone else's needs while minimizing my own. If I just say no, they'll wear me down eventually. They always have. Rachel nodded slowly. I get it. Sometimes you need to change the whole game when the rules are rigged against you. The psychological toll of my secret preparations began to show. I slept poorly, lost my appetite, and jumped whenever my phone rang. My colleague Marcus commented that I seemed distracted during a client meeting. Even my normally oblivious family noticed something was off. "You sound tired, dear," my mother remarked during one of her calls about Christmas plans. "Are you getting enough rest?" "Just busy with year-end closings," I replied, the partial truth easier than explaining that I was dismantling my life in preparation for battle. "Well, you work too hard," she said dismissively. "Maybe having Stephanie around would be good for you, force you to relax more." The casual confirmation of their plans sent a fresh wave of anger through me. "Maybe," I responded noncommittally. "How many people should I expect for Christmas dinner?" "Just the 4 of us," she said. Though Stephanie mentioned she might bring some of her things in the car, since she'll be visiting you more often in the new year. The audacity was breathtaking. More often was clearly code for moving in permanently. I ended the call shortly after, hands shaking with suppressed emotion. My father's tactics were more direct. "Your sister is having a tough time financially," he stated bluntly during his weekly check-in. "The family needs to step up." "The family?" I repeated. "Or just me? We've supported both of you girls throughout your lives," he replied, conveniently forgetting the disparity in that support. "Now it's time for you to do your part." The guilt trips continued throughout December, interspersed with Stephanie's increasingly transparent hints about needing a place to crash and loving the neighborhood around my condo. Each conversation reinforced my resolve, even as doubts occasionally surfaced in quiet moments. Christmas shopping became an exercise in maintaining appearances. I purchased thoughtful, generous gifts for each family member: a leather portfolio for my father, a luxurious scarf for my mother, and an expensive art set for Stephanie. For myself, I bought something symbolic: a small, framed photo of the keys to my condo from the day I purchased it. A reminder of what I had achieved and what I was now choosing to leave behind. The final week before Christmas was the most challenging. The buyer's inspection went smoothly, but required me to be absent from my condo for several hours. The apartment manager called with paperwork questions that I had to answer during a client meeting. My mother called daily with questions about Christmas dinner preparations, each conversation a minefield of hidden agendas and assumptions. "Does your building have visitor parking?" she asked casually. "Your father wants to know where to park." "The guest spots should be fine for the day," I answered, deliberately ignoring the implication of longer-term arrangements. "And is there an elevator for bringing up packages?" "Yes. Though I'm not expecting many packages besides your gifts." Her pause spoke volumes. "Well, you never know what Santa might bring," she finally said with forced cheerfulness. On Christmas Eve, I stood in my partially packed condo, most items still in place, but essential documents and treasured possessions already boxed and hidden in my car trunk, and experienced a moment of pure panic. Was I making a catastrophic mistake? Would this action permanently sever my family relationships? Was setting this boundary worth the potential fallout? I called Jessica, my mentor, in a moment of crisis. "I'm second-guessing everything," I admitted. "Maybe I should just let Stephanie move in temporarily? Maybe I'm overreacting." "Megan," Jessica's voice was calm but firm, "this isn't just about your sister moving in. This is about a family dynamic that has made you feel less valued your entire life. You've created a solution that protects your independence while making a clear statement about your boundaries. Trust yourself." Her words steadied me. I spent the evening preparing for Christmas dinner, marinating the prime rib my father favored, preparing the vegetable sides my mother preferred, and baking the chocolate cake Stephanie had always requested for special occasions. Tomorrow would change everything, but tonight I would honor our last holiday under the old rules. Before bed, I stood at my living room window, gazing out at the city lights for what would likely be the last time as the owner of this space. "Goodbye," I whispered to the condo that had represented so much to me. Whatever happened tomorrow, this chapter of my life was ending. I was both mourning its loss and looking forward to what came next. Christmas morning dawned bright and cold, sunlight reflecting off fresh snow that had fallen overnight. I woke early after a restless night, my stomach tight with anticipation. Today was the day everything would change. I moved through my morning routine with deliberate calm, brewing coffee, and playing soft Christmas music as if this were any ordinary holiday. By 11, my condo was transformed into a festive wonderland. The dining table was set with my best china and crystal glasses. A small pine tree glittered in the corner, and the scent of roasting meat filled the air. I wore a new emerald green dress, applied my makeup with care, and practiced my composed expression in the bathroom mirror. "You can do this," I told my reflection. "You've earned the right to set boundaries." The doorbell rang at precisely noon. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and opened the door to find my family standing there with bright, expectant smiles and an unusual amount of luggage. "Merry Christmas," my mother exclaimed, embracing me while my father struggled with a large suitcase. "We brought a few things," he explained with forced casualness. "Just some overnight items." Behind them, Stephanie stood with 2 duffel bags and a smug smile. "Merry Christmas, sis. Something smells amazing." I let them in, noting the way they surveyed the space with calculating eyes. My mother immediately began placing wrapped gifts under the tree, while my father positioned the suitcase in the hallway, leading to the bedroom specifically, near the door to my second bedroom. "Let me take your coats," I offered, maintaining the pretense of normalcy. "Dinner will be ready in about an hour. I've made appetizers if anyone's hungry." "Your place looks wonderful, dear," my mother commented, eyeing the second bedroom door. "Though you could use a bit more storage space, couldn't you? That hall closet seems quite full." "I manage just fine," I replied, pouring wine for everyone. "It's the perfect size for one person." Stephanie snorted softly but said nothing, accepting her glass with a knowing look at our parents. We exchanged gifts before dinner, the ritual feeling hollow given what I knew was coming. My parents exclaimed over the portfolio and scarf, while Stephanie examined her art supplies with genuine enthusiasm. I opened their gifts with appropriate gratitude: a set of luxury bath products from my mother, an investment book from my father, and a framed photo of our family from Stephanie. "To remind you what's really important," she said pointedly as I unwrapped it. Dinner proceeded with superficial pleasantness, though I noticed my parents growing increasingly fidgety as the meal progressed. My father kept clearing his throat, a nervous habit I recognized from childhood. My mother refilled her wine glass twice, unusual for her typically modest consumption. Stephanie kept glancing toward the second bedroom, barely concealing her impatience. As I served the chocolate cake, my father finally set down his fork and exchanged a look with my mother. The moment had arrived. "Megan," he began, his voice shifting into what I thought of as his accountant tone, authoritative and matter-of-fact. "We need to discuss a family matter." I took a sip of wine, steeling myself. "Oh? What's that?" My mother reached across the table to touch my hand. "It's about Stephanie, dear. She's in a difficult situation with her apartment lease ending next month." "The landlord's raising the rent by 30%, Stephanie interjected, her voice plaintive. "It's highway robbery. I can't possibly afford it." My father nodded gravely. "We've discussed it as a family, and the solution seems obvious." He gestured around my condo. "You have this beautiful place with a spare bedroom that's hardly used. We think Stephanie should move in with you," my mother continued, her tone suggesting this was a foregone conclusion rather than a request. "Just temporarily, of course. A year or so at most, until she gets back on her feet." Stephanie nodded eagerly. "It makes perfect sense. You're hardly ever home because of work, and when you are, you're usually in your bedroom or the living room. I wouldn't even be in your way." The presumption was staggering. I set down my wine glass carefully, conscious of every movement. "I see. And when were you planning to ask me about this arrangement?" My father frowned. "We're discussing it now, aren't we? This is a family decision." "No," I said quietly. "This is my home. Decisions about who lives here are mine alone." My mother's expression tightened. "Megan, be reasonable. Stephanie needs help, and family supports each other. Your father and I have limited space in our home with his home office, and you have this entire extra bedroom just sitting empty." "It's not empty," I corrected. "It's my home office and gym. I use it daily." Stephanie rolled her eyes. "You could easily move a desk into your bedroom and get a gym membership. Stop being so selfish." "Selfish?" The word hung in the air between us. "Yes, selfish," my father confirmed, his voice hardening. "You've always been territorial, but this goes beyond that. Your sister needs help, and you have the means to provide it. What kind of person refuses to help family?" I looked at each of their faces, expectant, entitled, confident in their righteousness, and felt a strange calm settle over me. "I already know about this plan," I said evenly. "I've known since Thanksgiving." 3 pairs of eyes widened in confusion. "What are you talking about?" my mother asked. "I overheard you in Dad's study after Thanksgiving dinner. All 3 of you discussing how you would corner me at Christmas, in my own home, to announce that Stephanie would be moving in. Not ask, announce." Silence fell over the table. My father recovered first. "You misunderstood what you heard." "Did I? Let's see." I turned to Stephanie. "Didn't you say," and I quote, "she owes me anyway. She's always had it easier?" Stephanie's face flushed. I never. And Mom, I continued, didn't you say it would just be temporary, a year or so at most? The same thing you just said a minute ago? My mother's hand fluttered to her throat. Megan, you're taking things out of context. And Dad, didn't you say that I make enough to help out the family, and that it's time I contributed more than just showing up for holidays with expensive wine? My father's face darkened with anger. Eavesdropping on private conversations now? That's your defense for refusing to help your sister? It's not a defense, I replied calmly. It's an explanation for why I've made certain decisions. What decisions? My mother asked, wariness creeping into her voice. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Excuse me, I said, standing from the table. I need to get that. All three of them watched in confusion as I walked to the door, composed and confident for the first time in this confrontation. When I opened it, Amy stood there in her professional attire, a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. "Merry Christmas, Megan," she said with a warm smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting your family dinner." "Not at all," I assured her. "In fact, your timing is perfect. Please come in." I led Amy into my dining room where my family sat frozen in confusion. 3 pairs of eyes tracked our movement with growing suspicion. My father was the first to speak, his businessman instincts kicking in as he assessed Amy's professional appearance. "Megan, who is this?" he demanded, his tone suggesting I'd committed some serious breach of holiday etiquette. "This is Amy Chen, my colleague and real estate agent," I replied, the words falling into the room like stones into still water. "Amy, this is my family, my father Thomas, my mother Karen, and my sister Stephanie." Amy smiled professionally. "It's lovely to meet you all. I apologize for interrupting your Christmas celebration." "Real estate agent?" my mother repeated, her voice rising slightly. "Megan, what is going on?" I returned to my seat at the table, gesturing for Amy to take the empty chair I deliberately left available. "Amy's here because I've sold the condo." The silence that followed was absolute. My father stared at me, his face flushing red. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Stephanie looked as though I'd slapped her. "You've what?" my father finally exploded. "Sold the condo," I repeated calmly, opening the folder Amy had placed on the table. "The paperwork was finalized last week. Closing is January 15th. I slid the documents across the table, the sale agreement with all signatures in place, the closing instructions, the final walkthrough schedule. My father snatched them up, scanning the pages with disbelief. "This is insane," he sputtered. "You can't just sell your home on a whim." "It wasn't a whim," I corrected. "It was a carefully considered decision made after I overheard your plans to move Stephanie in without my consent." My mother began to cry, her shoulders shaking. "Megan, how could you do this? We're your family." "Yes, you are," I agreed. "And family should respect boundaries. Family should ask, not demand. Family should value each member equally, not consistently prioritize one over another." Stephanie, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly found her voice. "Where am I supposed to live now?" she demanded, as if her housing had ever been my responsibility. "The same place you were living before you decided my spare bedroom belonged to you," I replied evenly. "Your apartment, your parents' house, or anywhere else you can afford on your own." "You've always been selfish," Stephanie hissed, tears springing to her eyes. "Always thinking only about yourself." I met her gaze steadily. "No, Stephanie, I've spent my entire life being told to accommodate your needs, your feelings, your failures. I worked through college while you had your tuition paid. I saved for years to buy this place while you blew through one business venture after another. I've earned everything I have through hard work and sacrifice, while you've come to expect bailouts and handouts." "That's enough!" My father slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses jump. "You will cancel this sale immediately." The old Megan would have flinched at his tone. The old Megan might have begun to doubt herself. But I was no longer that person. "No, Dad, I won't. The sale is final. The new owners are a lovely young couple expecting their first baby. They're very excited about the nursery they're planning for the second bedroom. You know, the one you decided belonged to Stephanie." My mother was openly sobbing now. "Where will you live? Have you thought about that?" "I've signed a lease on a new apartment," I informed her. "It's smaller, but perfect for one person." I move in next week. So this is it? My father demanded. You're willing to destroy your relationship with your family over a property? I shook my head slowly. This isn't about property. This is about respect. This is about 32 years of being treated as less important, less deserving, less valuable than Stephanie. This is about finally saying enough. Amy, who had been sitting quietly through this exchange, cleared her throat. Perhaps I should step outside and give your family some privacy, she suggested diplomatically. That's not necessary, I assured her. I believe my family was just leaving. Leaving? My mother looked stricken. Megan, it's Christmas. Yes, it is, I agreed. And I invited you here to celebrate the holiday, not to be ambushed with demands to give up my home. My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. If you go through with this, you're not welcome in our home again. Do you understand? You're choosing property over your own family. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old fear, the old desire to please, to conform, to be the good daughter who never caused trouble. Then I remembered all the times I'd compromised, all the times I'd accepted less, all the times I'd been expected to give way. That's your choice to make, I said quietly. Just as selling my property was mine. Stephanie stood next, tears streaming down her face. I can't believe you'd do this to me, she cried. Where am I supposed to go? That's a question you should have asked yourself before assuming my home was your backup plan, I replied. You're 28 years old, Stephanie. It's time to solve your own problems. My mother rose shakily to her feet, her face pale with shock. This isn't you, Megan. This cold, calculating person. This isn't the daughter I raised. Perhaps you're right, I acknowledged. The daughter you raised was taught to always put herself last. I've outgrown that lesson. My father gathered their coats without another word, his movements jerky with suppressed rage. My mother continued to cry quietly as she collected their gifts. Stephanie made a show of leaving her art supplies behind a final, petulant gesture meant to wound. I walked them to the door, maintaining my composure through sheer force of will. As they stepped into the hallway, my father turned back, his expression thunderous. You'll regret this, he promised. When you're alone in that apartment with no family to turn to, you'll realize what you've thrown away. What I've thrown away, I repeated thoughtfully. Or what was never truly offered to me in the first place? I closed the door as Stephanie began a dramatic breakdown in the hallway, her wails echoing until the elevator doors slid shut. Only then did I allow my shoulders to slump, the adrenaline draining from my body all at once. Amy approached cautiously. Are you okay? I considered the question seriously. My family had just walked out, possibly forever. I had sold my dream home. My future suddenly looked nothing like I'd imagined it a month ago. Not yet, I answered honestly. But I will be. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a blur of packing boxes and processing emotions. My phone remained silent, no calls from my parents, no texts from Stephanie, no invitations to the traditional family New Year's gathering. The absence of contact was both painful and liberating. Like removing a splinter that had been embedded for so long I'd grown accustomed to its presence. Rachel arrived the day after Christmas with pizza, wine, and determined energy. Let's get you packed and out of here, she announced, already taping together boxes. No dwelling allowed. Jessica joined us the following day, bringing professional packing supplies and practical advice. Only take what you love to the new place, she counseled. See this as an opportunity to reset, not just relocate. With their help, I sorted through years of accumulated possessions, making thoughtful decisions about what deserved space in my new life. The process became unexpectedly therapeutic, each item considered, each memory examined, each decision an exercise in autonomy. On December 30th, I moved into my new apartment. Though smaller than my condo, the space was beautifully designed with floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek modern finishes, and an open floor plan that made it feel larger than its square footage. Most importantly, it was mine, a fresh start, untainted by family expectations or bitter confrontations. It suits you, Rachel declared as we arranged my furniture that evening. It feels like you, not like a place you thought you should have. Her observations struck me as profoundly accurate. My condo, for all its luxury, had partially been chosen to prove something to my family, to colleagues, to myself. This apartment was chosen solely for my comfort and preferences. The closing on my condo proceeded smoothly. I met the buyers, Sarah and Michael, for a final walkthrough on January 14th. Watching them plan where their baby's crib would go in what had been my spare bedroom, I felt a surprising sense of rightness. This space that had become a battleground would instead become a nursery, filled with love and possibility. "We can't thank you enough," Sarah told me, her hand resting on her barely visible pregnancy. "This is exactly the home we've dreamed of for starting our family." "It's a special place," I acknowledged. "I'm glad it's going to people who will fill it with love." The next day, I signed the final paperwork, handed over the keys, and officially closed that chapter of my life. Amy took me to lunch afterward, raising a toast to new beginnings. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I've seen a lot of people sell homes for a lot of reasons, but I've rarely seen someone make such a difficult decision with such clarity. You should be proud of yourself." I was proud, though the emotion was complicated by grief for the family relationships that remained in limbo. January passed without contact, each holiday and birthday traditionally acknowledged, now marked by silence. I sent my mother a card for her birthday in mid-January. It was returned unopened. My father's email arrived in early February, a lengthy, formal missive outlining all the ways I had disappointed them and damaged the family. The final paragraph delivered his ultimatum. I could apologize, admit my selfish mistake, and be welcomed back into the family. Or I could continue on my destructive path alone. I read the email twice, noting how he framed my decision as an emotional outburst rather than a considered response to their behavior. Even now, he couldn't acknowledge that I might have legitimate reasons for my actions. I closed the email without responding. My mother's voicemail came a week later, her voice tearful and manipulative in turns. "We miss you, Megan. Your father is too proud to say it, but he misses you too. Stephanie is struggling without your support. We're your family, doesn't that mean anything to you?" The message twisted my stomach into knots, the familiar guilt rising like acid in my throat. I saved the voicemail but didn't return the call. I needed to break the pattern completely before considering what kind of relationship might be possible in the future. Stephanie's response took the form of angry social media posts, vaguely referencing toxic family members and selfish people who don't care about anyone but themselves. Friends who knew both of us messaged me privately, concerned about the one-sided narrative she was constructing. "Just ignore it," Rachel advised. "Engaging will only fuel her victim narrative." I followed her advice, focusing instead on rebuilding my life. I joined a book club in my new building, meeting neighbors who knew nothing of my family drama. I redecorated my apartment, choosing colors and styles that reflected my personal taste rather than trends or expectations. I threw myself into work, earning a promotion in March that came with a significant raise and increased responsibilities. Then, unexpectedly, support emerged from an unlikely source. My Aunt Elaine, my father's sister, who had always maintained a polite but distant relationship with our family, reached out via email. "Your cousin told me what happened," she wrote. "I want you to know that your father has always had blind spots where Stephanie is concerned. Your grandmother and I tried to talk to him about it years ago, but he wouldn't listen. What you did took courage. I hope someday they'll see that." Her message was followed by one from my cousin Brett, who shared his own experiences with my father's dismissive attitude toward anyone who challenged Stephanie's preferential treatment. "He stopped speaking to me for 6 months when I refused to lend Stephanie money for her absolutely guaranteed profitable jewelry business," Brett revealed. "Just know you're not crazy, and you're not alone." These messages provided unexpected validation, confirming that others had seen the pattern I'd lived with for decades. I hadn't imagined it. I wasn't overreacting. The realization was both vindicating and deeply sad. The first family gathering I missed was my grandmother's 85th birthday in April. Though I sent a gift and card, the absence weighed on me. I had always been close with my grandmother, who had shown me consistent love and support throughout my childhood. That evening, my phone rang with her number. "Grandma?" I answered hesitantly. "Megan, darling." Her voice, though frailer than it once had been, still carried the warmth I remembered. "I missed you today. I'm sorry I couldn't be there," I said carefully. "No need for apologies." Elaine told me what happened. I want you to know that standing up for yourself doesn't mean you've lost me. Some distances are necessary for healing. Tears filled my eyes at her understanding. Thank you for calling. Your grandfather would have been proud of you, she continued. He always said you had a quiet strength. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is walk away from situations that diminish us. We spoke for nearly an hour, her wisdom and unconditional love a balm to my wounded spirit. Before we hung up, she promised to visit my new apartment soon without your father or sister, just us. That conversation marked a turning point in my healing. I began therapy the following week, working with Dr. Matthews to unpack the complex family dynamics I'd navigated my entire life. Through our sessions, I gained insights into patterns I'd never recognized and developed tools for maintaining boundaries without shutting down completely. Estrangement doesn't have to be permanent, Dr. Matthews explained during one session. But reconciliation requires acknowledgement and change from all parties. You can only control your part of that equation. By summer, I had established a new normal. My apartment had become a true home, filled with plants, books, and artwork I loved. My career continued to flourish. I began dating Nathan, a kind environmental engineer I met through my building's community garden project. I had rebuilt my life on my own terms. In June, my mother reached out again, suggesting we meet for coffee. The tone of her message was different, less demanding, more tentative. After discussing it with Dr. Matthews, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location. Our conversation was awkward at first, months of silence creating a barrier between us. Gradually, however, she began to open up. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, she admitted, turning her coffee cup in small circles. About the things you said. I didn't want to hear them at the time, but there was truth there that I need to face. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the pattern, nor an apology for her role in it, but it was a beginning. We agreed to meet again the following month, a small step toward whatever new relationship might be possible. My father remained distant, unwilling to bend. Stephanie had moved in with our parents, a solution that was proving challenging for everyone involved, according to my mother's careful comments. I felt sympathy for their situation, while maintaining firm boundaries around my involvement. 6 months after the Christmas confrontation, I sat on my balcony watching the summer sunset, reflecting on how completely my life had transformed. I had lost my dream condo, but gained something far more valuable: the confidence to define my own worth, independent of family validation or external achievements. The path forward remained uncertain. Some relationships might be rebuilt on healthier foundations. Others might remain distant or even permanently severed. What had changed irrevocably was my willingness to accept the unacceptable, to diminish myself to keep the peace, to participate in dynamics that hurt me. That night, I framed the photo of my condo keys and hung it in my entryway, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but as a testament to what I'd found. The courage to choose myself. As the 1-year anniversary of my life-changing Christmas decision approached, I found myself in a reflective mood. The seasons had cycled through spring blossoms, summer heat, and autumn colors. Now, winter was returning, bringing with it memories both painful and powerful. My relationship with my family had evolved into something I wouldn't have recognized a year ago. My mother and I met monthly for coffee, our conversations growing gradually more honest, though we carefully avoided certain topics. She had begun seeing a therapist of her own, prompted partly by the increasing tension of having Stephanie living at home again. It's been an adjustment, she admitted during our November meeting, a masterpiece of understatement. Your father and I aren't used to having someone else in the house after so many years alone. I nodded, resisting the urge to point out that this was exactly what they had planned to impose on me. Some lessons needed to be learned through experience rather than explanation. My father maintained his distance, though my mother reported that he occasionally asked about me. Pride and stubbornness prevented him from reaching out directly, but the complete silence had given way to indirect inquiries. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was movement in a direction that might someday lead there. Stephanie and I remained estranged. According to my mother, she had found part-time work at an art supply store and was taking graphic design courses at the community college, her first sustained effort at building practical skills. I wished her well from a distance, understanding that our relationship had been shaped by patterns neither of us had created, but both had perpetuated. The most surprising development came from my expanded relationships with extended family. My grandmother visited regularly, bringing family stories and wisdom accumulated over decades. My Aunt Elaine and I discovered shared interests in gardening and historical fiction, building a relationship that had never been possible under my father's careful management of family connections. My cousin Brett and his wife invited me to their son's first birthday party, incorporating me into family gatherings that bypassed my parents' home entirely. Family doesn't have to look the way we're told it should, my grandmother observed during one visit. Sometimes the healthiest families are the ones we piece together ourselves. Her words resonated deeply. Over the past year, I had created a chosen family of friends, colleagues, and relatives who accepted me as I was. Rachel remained my steadfast supporter, celebrating every milestone of my recovery. Jessica had become a valued mentor and friend beyond our professional relationship. Nathan, now my boyfriend of 6 months, provided partnership based on mutual respect and genuine care. My apartment had transformed from an emergency landing spot into a true sanctuary. I'd painted the walls, hung artwork that spoke to me, and filled the space with plants and books. It was smaller than my condo had been, but it fit me perfectly, a home chosen for my comfort rather than to impress others. My career continued to flourish, my confidence in professional settings growing, as I freed myself from the need for external validation. The promotion I'd received in spring led to increased responsibilities and visibility within the company. My colleagues noticed the change in me, not just my professional growth, but my personal presence. "You seem different," Marcus commented after I successfully closed a particularly challenging deal. "More centered, somehow." "I feel different," I acknowledged. "I finally know exactly where I stand." In therapy, Dr. Matthews helped me understand that boundaries weren't about shutting people out, but about defining what was acceptable in my life. "Healthy boundaries are like good fences," she explained. "They don't prevent connection, they just clarify where one person ends and another begins." This perspective helped me navigate the complex emotions that still surfaced around family events. I sent cards for birthdays and holidays, maintaining connections without compromising my well-being. I declined invitations that felt weighted with expectations or manipulation. I remained open to genuine change while protecting myself from old patterns. The most profound shift occurred in how I viewed myself. For years, I had unconsciously accepted my family's assessment of my worth, that I was less deserving, less sensitive, less important than my sister, that I should be grateful for whatever attention and support came my way, that my achievements were expected while my sisters were exceptional. The most damaging messages are the ones we internalize so deeply we can't even recognize them as external voices, Dr. Matthews observed during one particularly insightful session. Identifying those messages is the first step to replacing them with your own truth. My truth, I discovered, was that I deserved respect, consideration, and love, not as rewards for achievement or compliance, but as my birthright as a human being. This seemingly simple realization transformed everything. From how I conducted business negotiations to how I expressed needs in personal relationships. As December arrived, I decided to host a different kind of Christmas gathering, a chosen family celebration with friends and the extended family members who had supported my journey. When I shared this plan with my mother during our coffee meeting, her expression grew wistful. "It sounds lovely," she said softly. "Perhaps someday we could all celebrate together again." "Perhaps," I agreed, leaving the possibility open without promises. "When everyone is ready to treat each other with respect," she nodded, understanding the implicit boundary. "I'm trying to learn that," she admitted. "It's not easy changing patterns that have existed for decades." "No," I agreed. "It's not. But it is possible." The truth of that statement sustained me as I prepared for the holiday season. Change was possible. I had proven that through my own transformation. Whether my family could change remained to be seen, but their journey was no longer my responsibility. My task was to continue building a life aligned with my own values, open to reconciliation but not dependent on it for happiness or fulfillment. On Christmas Eve, as I arranged appetizers for my gathering the following day, I received an unexpected email from Sarah, the woman who had purchased my condo. Attached was a photo of the nursery they had created in what had once been my spare bedroom, soft yellow walls, a white crib, and a mobile of stars and moons hanging from the ceiling. Their daughter, Emma, had been born in November, and the message included a picture of her sleeping peacefully in the room that had been at the center of so much family conflict. "We wanted to thank you again," Sarah wrote. "This home has been a blessing for our family this year. We hope wherever you are, you're finding as much joy as we have here." Tears pricked my eyes as I studied the images. The space that my family had tried to claim through manipulation was now filled with genuine love and new beginnings. There was something profoundly right about that transformation, a cosmic justice that brought peace rather than vindication. I replied with congratulations and warm wishes, sharing a photo of my decorated apartment to show that I too had found my place. Our brief exchange felt like closing a circle, completing the journey that had begun with an overheard conversation and culminated in two homes where they were meant to be. That night, I added a final ornament to my Christmas tree, a small key, symbolizing not what I had lost but what I had found, the key to my own life, on my own terms. Whatever the future held with my family, this hard-won wisdom would remain. Home isn't simply where you live, but where you're valued, respected, and free to be fully yourself. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that others didn't understand but you knew was right for you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more content about setting boundaries and building self-worth. And share with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose yourself sometimes. Thank you for watching. And remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Take care of it.